Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you've ever wanted to know what it was like to go from one continent to the next and be a successful long distance investor, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise. You know why? Because today's guest not only began his professional career in the U.S. military, where he became an officer, he also has a very strong focus on operational efficiencies, as well as rolling up his sleeves today. And you know what? In 2018, he went from scrolling on social media to actively owning his future and getting more involved in real estate investing. He's also built a portfolio from long distance and overseas long distance, which is really, really close to my heart. And today currently is a deputy site manager as well as active long distance investor. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Chris Giorgi. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Billy, great to be here. I've listened to just about every one of your podcasts in the last 6 months, so it's great to finally be on one.
Well, thank you very much for that, man. We appreciate that. And I love your story. And when we connected, I was like, oh my gosh, Chris, you got to get here. We wanted to hear about your story because, I'm not going to ruin it exactly how you're a long distance investor and a successful long distance investor, but I'll let you tell that. And as you know, Chris, I love asking everybody. Everybody's going to get the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the end, and kind of in between. Well, you and I are just going to have a great conversation, and we're going to get to know you, me and the entire Going Long family. So with that being stated, help us understand, where exactly do you live?
So I currently live in lovely Hohenfels, Germany, which is in the state of Bavaria in the southeastern portion of Germany. Right now, I'm currently on vacation with my family and my in-laws in southern Italy, Salerno, and just south of the Amalfi Coast.
Ah, wow. So live in southern Germany. You're currently in southern Italy, and wow, that's just fun. I love both of those places, by the way, because I've had personal experience being in those areas. So, and I know we were talking about a little bit about that before. So awesome. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome about Chris. But you know what? It's going to get even better, because aside from where you live, can you help us understand what's like the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Sure. So this is actually an easy one. Actually, lots happened in the last 24 hours. Last week, since I met up with my family down here. The last 24 hours, I was able to take my 2 lovely daughters, father-daughter day. We went to a local beach, took a taxi there, figured out how to get there, spent 5-6 hours there, just no cell phones, no internet, no nothing, just us, 30 degrees Celsius, 80, 85 Fahrenheit, not a cloud in the sky. And then just this morning, my wife got to join us this time, and my 2 daughters. We went out shopping, had a lovely lunch, Mediterranean views. I mean, couldn't beat it. And then right after this, we're all going to go out to dinner again.
Being able to do quality family time is so fantastic. When you have a chance to spend time with your daughters, your sons, your children in general, it's just especially when you're aware of how important and special that time is. It's fantastic, and so I appreciate you recognizing that and also sharing that with me and the entire Going Long family. And one of the other things I do want to say, and I know as you were in the military, I do want to thank you for the service that you provided during the time that you were in the military. Thank you very much for that, Chris. And also too, man, listen, I always tried in the best way that I can to kind of tell your story and highlight some things, but it's impossible. I know I give myself an impossible job. I guess it's part of being an A student and stuff like that. We put impossible tasks. But I would love for you to share your story in your own words with the Going Long family so that we can understand more about you, get to get more insights, and then you and I will kind of take it from there and see where we end up before we get to the Going Long Final Three.
Okay, sure. So essentially, if I was to make a headline of it, kind of wordy headline, in 2018, I had 4 real estate properties. And I purchased my first one in 2004. And from 2004 to 2018, I was very, very slow going. I only had 4 properties. And then in 2018, I was transitioning from the Army, and I realized that I needed a different form of passive income. I always knew passive income was what I needed. And when I was transitioning, I listened to this gentleman who I actually work with now. He's on the government side. I'm a contractor over here. And he said it like 4 or 5 times. And when people say something 4 or 5 times, you kind of like take a note, look it up. And he was saying, real successful people, millionaires, they have 7 streams of income. You need 7 streams of income. You need multiple streams of income. And then finally, I started Googling it, and I'm like, okay. And then one thing led to another. And I had already known that real estate was where I wanted to go. But that really helped me kick it into gear. So 2018 to now, actually, to the last thing I purchased was in January 21. I grew my portfolio from 4 to 36 units, to include currently transitioning 4 of those units into Airbnbs, because I have one right now and it's doing pretty well, right? So now that I've gotten a taste of what short-term rentals can return as a part of the ROI, I'm not going all in, but there's a few properties that I have that would really help with that. So that's essentially the headline. Done all that while overseas, living in Germany. I've never met my property manager, who was also my broker. That's one of the most important things that we can talk a little bit about later, property managers and brokers. I've never seen any one of those units. I haven't even been back to, most of these are in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is the home of Fort Bragg, one of the largest Army bases, where I spent 2 good years there in 2004 to 2006. And I don't really have any plans to go back. I don't feel like I need to go back. I feel like I can do this all from over here. I kind of think I figured it out, and I have the tools and I have the knowledge where I can invest pretty much anywhere with just everything that I've learned. And I've just learned it from podcasts and videos and research and talking to people, picking up the phone, talking to people, networking. So yeah, that's the big picture. It probably started financially, it started before that. In 2016 is when I was 16, my dad, I think he met a financial advisor, and he said, "Hey, you got to set up a mutual fund. I think you're just retiring. You're investing in a 401k." And so my dad passed that down to me. So this is when I was 16. We put some money. I had a job for like a year, so I had like $500 in my name, and we put some of those funds into a mutual fund. But ever since then, I've been investing a couple percentage points to that fund every year until about 2018. So that was kind of the nest egg that I used when I went on a shopping spree. But I was always kind of financially curious. I read a lot of books about it, but I really didn't get everything into motion until 2018 in a real big way. My wife and we had done some flips beforehand. We purchased a few before that, but it didn't take off until 2018.
So this is really, it's interesting. So it started taking off in 2018. You were fortunate enough to have at your home your father that was able to spark some of this interest in the financial part of your life. I mean, just give you my example. Like I didn't even have any kind of concept. Like at 16, if you would have talked to me about a 401k or an IRA, I would have been like, "What are you talking?" I have no idea what you're talking about. So you're in a great position there. At the same time, you talked about some of the things that you've done directly from an investing perspective, right? From 2004 to 2018, and it took you this amount of time. And then you kind of had this moment where in 2018, you wanted to stop that scrolling around social media and you wanted to just get into actively doing things. And one of the things that I just want to highlight, because you said that you learned how to do this by listening to podcasts and watching videos and all that kind of stuff. I've been known to kind of slightly push back on guests sometime. And so I'm going to do that right now, because I just want people to recognize, kind of hear the words, but recognize really what's happening. Like the reason that you've been able to build your portfolio and do the things you are doing is not because you were just listening to podcasts or watching YouTube videos. You've been taking action, and that's super important. And I want people to also recognize that, yes, Chris is very humble and he's saying these things, but he's taking action. We're going to dive into more about the action and stuff that you've taken, but maybe you can, because sometimes people are going to think, well, how did you just start doing this? Maybe you could give us a little bit of an idea of like, what are some of the different skill sets that you were building, right? Because you started working at 16 and you've gotten to a point now where you've taken a lot of the different skill sets that you've had and it's allowed you to be able to achieve a certain level of success today and things like that. But maybe paint a little bit of your pictures so that people can understand, like, how did you, like, what kind of jobs did you do and how did you feel comfortable enough to go beyond what most people would do and invest long distance in being in Germany, buying back in Fayetteville?
Right. So my work ethic, I believe I have a pretty solid work ethic. And part of that, most of that, I attribute to my parents. We grew up in the southern suburbs of Chicago, but out there back in the day when, we were surrounded by corn. We had 5 acres, 7 horses. When you have horses and other animals, you have a lot of stalls to clean, a lot of stuff to do. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it didn't matter if I had friends sleeping over, 7 a.m. My dad was even waking my friends up, say, get out there, you got to clean the stalls. I'm like, I have sleepovers. I don't care. That's more free labor. And so a solid work ethic beaten into me from my parents. My first job, I worked at a pool. I wasn't a lifeguard. I was like the maintenance guy. And then I transitioned to lifeguard. And then I worked at a pizza place as a cook. And then from there, I went to college, couldn't have a job in college. But then after college, I went into the military. And then, so my first duty station was in Korea. This was back in 2001, and Korea was like the biggest thing before 9/11. So I volunteered, and then all of a sudden, 9/11 hit, and I was like, oh man, I'm missing Afghanistan. And then Iraq hit. And so I was able to deploy to Iraq, came back in late 2004. And I can't remember. I must have read some books over there. It wasn't any of the Purple Book series, but I came back and I purchased a new 2006 Acura TL, a 60-inch TV back when 42 inches were the biggest things, and then a $50,000 condo. So in like 2 months, I spent like $100,000, and I'm like, oh my God. But at least half of it was in a condo that I still own that has been producing income positively almost every month. And when I got that first paycheck after all the expenses were paid in the mortgage, it was about $500. And I was like, holy cow, how long does it take me in the Army to get a $500 pay raise? Essentially, that's what I equated it to. I'm like, it took me from the time I closed to the time I got my first paycheck was about 4 months. And it was in perpetuity, $500 increase. And right then and there, I was like, okay, real estate, there's more to, this is the way to go. I just needed more time, more money, more education. A few deployments later, kind of interrupted things, but that's when I kind of knew in 2004. I'm like, okay, this is the path to wealth.
So it's interesting. So it sounds that you recognize that this was a path to wealth, but one of the things that I heard you also say is you described when you were in your service during the time when you were in service, you went to Korea, right? Then you were in Afghanistan, and then you were in Iraq. Right? But the way that you said it, you were like, that's something that you were looking for in terms of a way to be able to serve. Whereas some people may have a different reaction, right? They may say, well, that kind of seems like that's going to be in harm's way. Like I would rather go and do something else. And the reason I'm asking the question is just because sometimes when you go against the current, right, you are able to do and make a positive impact in ways that most other people can't because you are just wired in a different way. I guess maybe having that experience of wanting to go into places where maybe others don't, and now being able to, and that was in terms of military service, but now today you are doing things that many people don't think is possible or would say is not possible, which is investing long distance, living on one continent, investing in another. How much do you think just the way that you are wired or the way that you perceive things is helping you today, or is either helping you or has allowed you to get to where you are today?
Sure. just for the record, one thing. So I didn't get a chance to go to Afghanistan. It was only a couple tours in Iraq. But
okay.
It's interesting.
But it's still okay. And I appreciate the clarification, but it's still the way that you wanted to be able to go, right? Whereas some people would say, I don't. So so thank you for the clarification. And also it's still the same question, right? Because you were wanting to or looking to go in that direction.
It's interesting you put it that way because, when you're in the military, they breed you to run to the sound of battle, right? To take action. Like there's no room in the military for people who hesitate or can't take action, can't make up their mind. And so that was, even in my current job and current investing, I don't, like some people suffer from analysis paralysis. And maybe my first couple of deals, actually, I don't think I really suffered from analysis paralysis. A lot of it is because, if you get educated, if you listen to podcasts, to people who've been there and done that, you can quickly elevate your experience without really having experience, right? So you can get book smarts. You can be book smarts or you can be experienced by doing. And if you don't have the experience by doing, if you don't have that much experience, but you can get education wise. And so I quickly learned how to do the 1% rule. I quickly learned how to set up Excel sheets, Bigger Pockets, looked at their calculators. And then, Bigger Pockets tells you, hey, keep all your expenses down. I'm like, okay, so I kept my expenses down. I didn't pay for the $30 a month subscription. I just looked at their calculator and I made up my own on Excel. And so I was analyzing maybe 10, 20 every week from Zillow or the MLS for my broker. And it's a really quick skill set you can learn. You can just plow through many opportunities or offerings that you're like, no, yes, okay, maybe let's dig into this. And there's a bunch of things that I do to further do that analysis. But numbers really don't lie. And then you talk to your property manager and your broker. You say, hey, look at this area. What do you think about this? And you get as much information as quickly as you can. You have your finances lined up. You just have to trust that, sure, there's some risk to it, but there's a lot more risk keeping all your money in a 401k on the stock market, which most people have no influence whether it goes up or down. So that's why I always tell people, like, okay, well, it's risky. I'm like, well, the stock market is a little bit riskier, I think.
Yeah. So, and you can definitely get into positions where you look at what are the risk factors and how much risk are you willing to take and things like that. And I guess one of the things that I would take away from what you just said is the environment has a lot to do with the way that you perceive things. So in the same way that you said, when you're in the military, it's not an option to not want to move into an area or into harm's way because that's just the environment. It also sounds that you have a lot of that internally anyway. And so as you then work and expand that out to your teams, you're helping to really give them that same type of a vision. You're giving them clear direction and things like that, which I think is fantastic. But one of the things that also too, like, because and I guess this is something I ask everybody, right? Because when you made that decision in 2018 that you really wanted to start doing more, or maybe it was even before that, sorry. When you made your very first property purchase, you were overseas, right? You were like me. You were in a different country. You were not in the same city that you bought your first property, correct?
So the first one, I had just returned from overseas and I was local. And so, so I was not overseas, but most of them after that were from overseas.
Perfect. So it's the same question, but now you've just given me a little bit more context. So maybe the first one you were in the same place. And so you recognize you're in the same place. You could go see the property. Probably most of the books that you read said you should be the landlord. You should go do that. Make sure you understand things, blah, blah. But then after that, you were thousands of kilometers, right? Thousands of kilometers, miles, however you want to put it, away from the property. And I'm always curious, and I ask everybody this question now, right? Because this is part of what we do as long distance investors, and you're an international long distance investor like me, which I think is cool. But most people would say, don't ever do that. or would be afraid to do that, or say like it's impossible because the Atlantic Ocean is between wherever we live and where the properties would be. But what was it that gave you the mental and emotional fortitude to actually move forward and say, well, even though I bought my first property, we're in the same place that I live, like now I'm really, really far away and it still feels okay to do that?
So a few things. One, I live in Germany. It's expensive and it's hard to buy properties in Germany. And I had a goal to have a certain amount of, for a certain dollar amount of passive income by 45. And to me, the only way to do it was what I wanted to do was real estate, right? And so I couldn't do local in Germany. So I knew I had to do it in the States. And so there's a few books, long distance real estate investing, that I purchased and bought. And after a while, it's just common sense. It's not that hard, right? You research the area. For me, luckily, I had been stationed Clarksville, Tennessee, Korea, Estonia, Germany, Iraq, Savannah, Fort Bragg. Out of all those, Fort Bragg won out. I did the research. It was growing, huge military population, constant turnover, constant new people coming in, and I felt very confident. And because I had lived there for 2 years, I knew the area pretty well. So with the education that I'd done, you said in the beginning that I stopped scrolling on social media. So it's very true. Just like most people, you get on Facebook or you come home and you're on Netflix, and like 3 hours later, you're just like, what the heck did I just do? I got no return on my time. And so I started getting deeper into LinkedIn. Now, like every post is from a syndicator or real estate somehow, or investing. Whenever I drive to work for the past almost 3 years, been listening to real estate podcasts, like just about every single one I could find, just to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to find something a little bit more complicated than the basic real estate investing. But yeah, so I really didn't have a choice, and I felt confident after about, just it only took about a month to get smart. I read the Purple Book, or a few of them. I read Long Distance. There's a few of the books that I'll recommend later on. And then after that, I felt like I had the educational background. The only thing that was missing was a solid team back in Fayetteville. And I actually thought I had it when I bought my fifth property. We made the offer when I was on the streets in Seville with my family watching the World Cup game. I guess it would have been 2018. And my then property manager, she was like, no, this is too hard. We should just let it go. And we had been going at it for like 2 or 3 months. And finally I told her, like, no, you're going to make this offer. This is a solid place. I need you to just get the earnest money check over there. And for whatever reason, it was very difficult doing it from Seville, where, I didn't have internet. It was 1700. It was like 5 p.m. On Friday. They had like 1 hour to get them to check. And, she was ready to back out. And so after that, I knew she was not the one to take me where I needed to go.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. So you recognize a bunch of things. So you as a long distance investor, like it's words are really important because you keep saying that it wasn't an option. The reality is it was an option and it is an option. Like you could have decided to invest in Germany, and you could have decided to not, or to have the person on your team just say, well, it's not possible, and move the other way. And we're just going to lose that property and we'll find another one. But it comes back to the whole, you were very focused and clear on what the objectives that you wanted to do. You knew that by 45, you wanted to get to a certain point of creating options. And I always say creating options because I believe that having certain level of finances provides you more life options. And so where most people will see the barriers, the way that you've not only explained it, but the way that you've acted, you just you break through those barriers, and then you bring your team to break through those barriers with you. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes. So sure, it is an option. I do know some people that purchase real estate in Germany, but for where I wanted to be and there's a whole bunch of other factors. I live and work over here under SOFA status, so status of forces agreement. I pay U.S. taxes, not German taxes. So if I buy property over here, there's just a whole bunch of rabbit holes I don't want to go down. but yeah, so it is an option, but it wasn't my plan. And I knew what I needed to do. And I had a plan in my head, and I actually wrote it down. And then I just, started putting things in place.
Yeah, I think, and this is what is fantastic, and that's why I wanted to just highlight it, because for people, it is an option to not do something to invest locally is an option. To not invest at all because you realize that it's too hard is an option. To invest long distance and build a team and have a network and be able to help and support and provide for other people is also an option. So it's just a matter of like, how clear are you on the goals that you want for your life, and which of those different options is the best one for you, which I think is fantastic. And it also shows just the way that you perceive things, which I think is fantastic, right? In terms of being able to be an effective long distance investor. Well, so one of the other things, Chris, before we kind of get closer to the going long final three, which I can't believe that it's always, the time goes by so fast.
Yeah.
As a long distance investor, one of the things, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, is the whole aspect of working with, or more importantly, building first and then working with a team of people. Everybody has different ways of doing it. There is no absolute right way. I am just curious, like, what has been, or I guess, how have you gone about being able to build your team and things like that? Because you mentioned earlier that there were people that you'd not even seen. So just curious, help enlighten us as to how you've gone about doing that.
Right. So I had the same property manager that I used in 2018 for my first overseas rental. That it was very painful, like working with her. And I thought I made it clear what I was trying to do, buy multiple properties. And after we got the first one under wraps, she's like, what are you trying to do? I don't understand what you're trying to do. I'm like, listen, I want to buy multiple properties. I want you to property manage it. I want you to fix them up. I want you to put the tenant in there, and then your company property manage it. And it was just like a foreign concept to her. And so, but it was the same company I had since 2004. And so finally I got on Bigger Pockets. I typed in that company's name, and the things that came up, it was not positive. And so I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, this is not going to work out. So then all I really did was I got on Google, typed in property managers, broker, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I spent a morning just researching them, from the looks of the website to I would put them in, I would look at all the reviews, the Google reviews, get on Facebook. And I emailed a few of the companies. The one lady called me back, and I was like, she called me on a Saturday. This other company never even called me on a Saturday. So that I was kind of surprised. And so we had about an hour conversation on a Saturday, early afternoon my time, so early morning her time. And I'm still with her. She owns Nest Managers. Lindsay Pillay is there. Huge shout out to her. She has taken me from 5 to 36. I mean, the deals that we did, I literally would not be where I am with unit wise without her. But it's like, I explained to her, so this is what I want to do, because I kind of learned from the last person. I had to be maybe a little bit more clear. Maybe it was on me. And so I said, I want to buy X amount of properties until I'm out of money. I'm never coming back there. We'll probably never meet. I want you to fix them. If I want to do a flip, can you do flips? Can you do burrs? What can you do? And so she was an investor herself, born and raised in Fayetteville. So that was the single most, the best person on my team that I have right now. And
so being able to build that relationship, and it comes back to the part of like, how did you go about building a team? And one of the things that you're saying, and I want us to just take a moment to reflect on that, was you accept the responsibility of making a change from your first property manager, right? Saying, hey, maybe it was me. But at the same time, you recognize that you wanted to make a change, and you just didn't do it yourself. You went to a source to find information, other reviews, other information. And then from there, you took action once again. You picked up the phone, you wrote the emails, you were working to build relationships with people there locally. You've also, spent time on the phone. It happened to be a Saturday morning where your new property management company is. And that also helped you to understand, because of your previous experience. Once again, we're always learning new things. You then realize, okay, this is more aligned with who I am, the type of company we want to build, and the person that can also help me. One last question before we get into the Go Long Final Three, because sometimes people may be like, well, you've never even met this person. Like what kind of controls have you put into place? Because it's always, I think it was Ronald Reagan that said something like, verify but trust. I think it was him. And if it wasn't, well, someone will fact check me and write it back, and I'll figure it out and get it right the next time. But how do you go about building trust with someone? Because you're like, I don't know if they're going to charge me X or 15 times X for the same work. Maybe talk to us about that, because I'm sure people are that seems a little bit scary to me.
Right. So, at first it kind of was, but just having that conversation, and sure, somebody can be really good and they sweet talk you, and then all of a sudden like all your money's gone. But when, again, with her company, I did the research again. I looked at Bigger Pockets. I looked at multiple other sources, all got really, really good reviews. And so I didn't just jump in with 2 feet. There was one property, and I saw how it worked out, where, actually we probably looked at 30 or 40 properties. And the good thing about hers, she was the manager and the broker, right? So she was going to buy it, and then she was the manager. And so there's plenty of properties. She's like, no, Chris, we're not going here. And so like part of it was building confidence by her telling me like, no, like this is not a good deal for you. And some of them were, I kind of knew it wasn't a good deal, but I just wanted to get the feedback. And she was like, yep, not a good deal. The numbers don't work for you. I'm an investor myself. Don't go here. So I was like, okay, great. And then, she kind of knew everybody. Like, I was like, do you know contractors? She's like, yes, I always give you 3 bids. So it's not like she just went to her buddy who she gets a kickback for. Yeah. It was 3 legit bids. And I looked at them, and I would talk her through it. We would do WhatsApp video calls. So I'm like, hey, when you go there, can you, there's a 6-hour time difference, but she always made time to get me there. And we do a video so I could see the whole place. And then, it got to the point, like she's even closed the property for me. Like I put the power of attorney in her name just for that property, because or else the deal wasn't gonna happen. And so she's like, okay, yeah, I can do that.
So it sounds like to me you were building up levels of trust. You started small, and incrementally you started also finding out more about this individual. Was she also playing with other A players? Was she doing things in a way that demonstrated integrity, providing 3 different bids from qualified vendors, being able to go above and beyond, once again, getting up maybe on a Saturday, doing the video calls, not afraid to do that, be transparent. And so that helps you to build that level of trust, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And you know what? It's amazing, Chris, but it's kind of time to get to the Going Long Final Three. And the thing is, I never ask anybody, as you know, the Going Long Final Three unless they tell me. So that means you, Chris, unless you tell me that you're ready for me to ask the Going Long Final Three. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I knew you would be ready. Here we go. Perfect. And this is going to probably be easier for you than most people. But hey, listen, it's the Going Long Final Three. It's the Going Long Final Three. So help us understand, because we started here in Europe because you're in Europe like me. And now we're going to finish in Europe like here because the 2 of us are here. So help us understand, what is your favorite European city, either that you have, I guess, lived in, visited, or still on your bucket list to visit?
Right. It's, it should be an easy question, right? Easy to answer. I'm going to have to say Rome, but Madrid, we flew to Madrid 2 years ago. We were just blown away. Like, I had no idea what to expect. One of the cleanest cities, most friendly people. It was beautiful. But what's on my wife's bucket list, where I want to take her, is right where you live, Barcelona. I went there in, I think it was 2003. And it's an amazing city. Just haven't gotten a chance to get there yet, but we will.
All right. So perfect. Well, listen, Chris, now you have another reason to come here, hang out with me in Barcelona. I will show you all around. It will be a lot of fun. So we will take that. We will take a vote for Barcelona, which is very, very cool. Awesome. So thank you very much. And then I guess, one of the things that also people want to know, as you're more than aware, is like, it's kind of the things that happen with really successful people, and so, because you're a very successful person, it's one of the things that I've recognized, and that that all successful people have in common. And it's, one of the things that really successful people do is they tend to be very successful because they in their lives only make literally one mistake. And so that's the whole reason. The Well, I get all frustrated. Well, and I always continue to think that I'm going to ask that question the right way, but I get it wrong every time. I think I get nervous, or maybe it's by design.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Everyone in the Going Long family, we always love to learn, and we really appreciate being able to learn from other learning opportunities or mistakes or whatever you want to call them. And we want to do that from very successful people. And Chris, you've demonstrated that you are someone who's successful. And so I would love for you to share with me and the Going Long family, not really the mistake or the learning opportunity that you had, but what is one lesson that you would share with me and the entire Going Long family from a learning opportunity that you had in the past?
So a few lessons, but let me give you just the biggest one, which I think is the most important. Your property manager, if it's possible, should also be your broker. So the person that sells you should be the property is the one person that should also manage it, or else you're going to have a conflict of interest, right? So the broker is just trying to make money, right? Get the sale, they get the percentage, and then they may or may never talk to you again. Where the property manager doesn't want anything in a C or D or F neighborhood, right? They want an A or B neighborhood. They want a nice house. They want to be able to rent it, preferably for 4 digits. They want it already maintained, low maintenance. And so what I noticed before I started doing the overseas investing, I had a property manager, and then I had a broker, and I had to find the property and then tell the broker, hey, can you coordinate with this other person, with my property manager, send her the email and the links. And then, it was just very time consuming. And so one of the most important things that I did, and that I actually learned in one of the overseas investing books, was try to make that the same person. It would just streamline all your purchases in the future. And
which is greatly appreciated. So that is definitely a great way to approach it. And so being able to have that, especially for the long distance investors, and take a look, and then I'm sure people will follow up with you, because we get lots of different thoughts on that. So, which is fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. And then the last thing, and I know you've got a lot of books that you want to share with us, because I know you are a person who is well read. And the thing is, we always want to feed our minds here. And so the last question, as you know, is what is the one book that you would recommend to me and the Going Long family?
Can I give you a stack of books? Or one?
I would prefer, I know you have that, which is why I kind of preface it, because I know you've got it. But if you had to select, what is the one? Because so many people do a lot of reading. It's something that I absolutely think. And I guess if you thought about just kind of the conversation, what's happened, what we've talked about, of the books that you would want to recommend, what is literally that one that you think, Chris, if everybody that's listening to us today just reads this one book, it's going to exponentially improve the results that they're looking for?
So one book, it's not exactly real estate investing, but it has helped me phenomenally as I transitioned the military, where you can act a certain way, to the civilian world where you can't act that way, right? And so it's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I read that book as an audiobook in 2018 and 19, and it has saved me, and just opened up my mindset to a different way of doing business and working in real estate professionally, day to day. Phenomenal book.
How to Win Friends and Influence People, Mr. Carnegie. And that was one that we can take to the bank, and we will include in the show notes. And I appreciate you focusing it on one, because like I said, I know you like to read a lot. I know you've got a lot to share with us. So I guess the thing is these conversations go by way too fast, Chris. And I'm just thinking of the very beginning of the conversation, you're talking about what you were doing from 2008, and then 2018, things kind of changed, and you got this clarity, and you were talking about just the way that your mind was wired, and the things that in the places that you wanted to go. You talked about going to Korea, you talked about going to Iraq, you talked about wanting to go to Afghanistan. Didn't happen that way. You also talked to us about what is that one conversation that kind of changed the way that you started thinking about streams of income, even before the conversations that you were having with your dad when you were 16 years old and you got started in the 401k and in the IRAs, or saving your money in qualified plans, I guess is probably a better way to state that other conversation, which really well, you know what? 7 streams of income. What do we need to do to be able to do that so that you can have a wealthy life? And then you went from that to stopping scrolling. I know we've talked about it before. In 2018, you really focused on really how do you build, and you've been able to, multiply your portfolio 9 times, which is fantastic. And most importantly, you continue to do that as a long distance investor overseas. You're building teams, you're building relationships, you're networking, and you're achieving results. And I know because of that, especially the long distance part, so many people are like inspired by your story, and so many more people want to reach out to you. So help us understand, please, Chris, what is the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about you and what you're doing?
Sure. So the best way would be to look me up on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook, but like I said, I stopped scrolling. But LinkedIn is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm pretty responsive as soon as I get something. Not trying to sell anything, but anybody wants to reach out, ask me, get my advice, or tell me about their story, more than happy to listen and help out any way I can.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Chris, I appreciate that. I can attest to the fact that, yes, you do look to add value, look to learn, and you also look to connect with people, which is fantastic across those different social media channels. The one thing I do ask of the Going Long family, when you reach out to Chris, make sure that you let him know that you heard him here on the Going Long podcast, so it'll help the two of you maintain and continue the conversation. It's just a good practice. And since you're an amazing family of people, we would both appreciate that. So Chris, listen, man, thank you so much for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Billy, it's been great. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. And if you give me just, as you know, a couple seconds for the Going Long family, I just want to say thank you once again to the Going Long family. Having invested your time with Chris and I, you heard his story. Love that. Once again, international long distance investing, had many options and decided that this is the best option for him, his family, his life. Not only is he reading and listening to things, he's actually taking action, which is phenomenal. And I know that you know someone that needs to hear Chris's story. So make sure that you take today's conversation, share it with at least 2 to 3 other people, I know that you know 2 to 3 other people that need to hear today's story. And you know what, since you have your phone out already, and I say this all the time, if you haven't already and you found value in today's conversation, would really love and appreciate an honest review, as well as an honest written review, as well as a rating for today's conversation and the podcast. It's something that I take very seriously. I go through every single one of them. And the goal is to continue to bring you more valuable content, more valuable guests, fantastic guests like Chris. And listen, with that, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow. Don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.